The marble halls of the United States Senate echoed with footsteps as Muhammad Ali walked toward the hearing room, knowing his freedom hung in the balance. What he didn't know was that Senator James Whitmore had spent weeks preparing to destroy him on national television. The Southern senator thought he'd break the boxer with condescending questions and racist assumptions, but they had no idea they were facing the greatest legal mind they'd ever encountered without a law degree. And what happened in the next 3 hours would expose American racism at its highest level and change the course of history forever. Before we dive into this incredible story of the greatest facing the system, let me know in the comments where you're watching from today. If you believe in standing up for what's right, even when the most powerful people try to silence you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that prove courage means speaking truth to power. Now let's get into what really happened when Muhammad Ali walked into that Senate hearing room in 1970 and changed everything. It was a humid June morning in Washington, D.C., when Muhammad Ali adjusted his tie and prepared to face the Senate Armed Services Committee. The year was 1970, and Ali had been stripped of his heavyweight championship for 3 years. His appeal was winding through the courts, but today's hearing wasn't about his legal case. It was political theater, designed to make an example of the most famous draft resistor in America. Ali wore a simple dark suit, looking more like a preacher than the most dangerous athlete in the world. But behind those calm eyes was a mind that had spent 3 years studying constitutional law, civil rights cases, and the very documents that supposedly guaranteed his freedom. He'd read the Constitution so many times he could quote it from memory. He'd studied Supreme Court decisions until he understood them better than most lawyers. Because Ali knew something important: in a system designed to destroy you, your only weapon is knowing the system better than those wielding it against you. The night before, Ali had barely slept. He'd reviewed his notes one more time, going over every possible question, every trap they might set. His legal team had wanted to represent him, but Ali refused. This isn't just about law, he'd told them. This is about showing America that a black man from Louisville can stand toe-to-toe with the most powerful people in this country and not blink. I have to do this myself. The hearing room was packed with reporters, photographers, and spectators. Television cameras lined the back wall. This would be broadcast live across America. At the center of the raised platform sat Senator James Whitmore of Mississippi, a 62-year-old career politician who'd built his reputation on defending segregation and attacking civil rights activists. Whitmore had pale blue eyes that carried generations of Southern contempt, silver hair slicked back perfectly, and the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. Whitmore had made his intentions clear to reporters the night before. Tomorrow, we're going to see if this so-called champion can answer simple questions about duty, honor, and patriotism. I suspect we'll find out he's just another athlete who can throw punches but can't form a coherent thought. What Whitmore didn't know was that Muhammad Ali had been preparing for this moment his entire life. Every time a teacher had underestimated him, every time a reporter had mocked his intelligence, every time someone assumed his boxing ability meant intellectual deficiency, Ali had been storing that rage, sharpening it into a weapon far more dangerous than his fists. As Ali took his seat at the witness table, he noticed everything: the way Whitmore's assistant smirked while organizing papers, the way the other senators avoided eye contact, the way the audience leaned forward, anticipating a spectacle. They wanted to see Muhammad Ali humiliated. They wanted confirmation that the uppity boxer who'd challenged America's war machine was just an ignorant athlete who didn't understand his place. In the third row sat a young law student named Patricia Chen. She'd skipped classes to witness this hearing, convinced she was about to see history made, though she wasn't sure which kind. Behind her, an elderly black man named Samuel Washington gripped his hat tightly. remembering his own son who died in Vietnam, wondering if Ali was brave or foolish. Senator Whitmore gabbled the hearing to order, his voice dripping with false courtesy. "Mr. Clay, thank you for appearing before this committee today." The room went silent. Ali's jaw tightened slightly, the only outward sign of his reaction. Whitmore had used his birth name, the name Ali had rejected 7 years earlier when he converted to Islam. It was a deliberate insult, designed to establish dominance from the first word. "My name," Ali said calmly, his voice carrying that distinctive rhythm, "is Muhammad Ali. I changed it in 1964, and I'd appreciate it if you'd respect that, Senator." Whitmore's smile widened, showing too many teeth. "Well now, that's part of what we're here to discuss, isn't it? This whole question of respect, of duty, of what it means to be an American." He shuffled papers dramatically. "You see, Mr. Clay, excuse me, Mr. Ali, you claim to be a conscientious objector based on your religious beliefs. But this committee has some questions about whether those beliefs are genuine or just convenient." "I'm happy to answer any questions," Ali replied, his hands folded calmly on the table. But inside, his mind was already 3 moves ahead, anticipating every trap Whitmore would lay. "Let's start simple," Whitmore said, his tone condescending in a way that made several reporters shift uncomfortably. "Can you explain to this committee in your own words what the First Amendment says about freedom of religion?" It was designed to be a trap. Either Ali couldn't answer, proving he was ignorant, or he'd give a simple answer that Whitmore could then pick apart with legal technicalities. But Ali had studied this exact question for years. The First Amendment states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Ali recited perfectly. "But Senator, the question isn't whether I can recite the words. The question is whether you believe they apply to someone who looks like me and believes what I believe. Because I'm starting to suspect you think the Constitution only protects certain people." A gasp rippled through the audience. Several reporters started scribbling frantically. Patricia Chen felt her heart race. This wasn't going the way anyone expected. Whitmore's smile faltered for just a second before he recovered. "Now see here," Whitmore said, his voice taking on a harder edge. "I think the Constitution applies to all Americans who act like Americans, who serve their country when called, who put duty before personal comfort." "Is that what you did, Senator?" Ali asked quietly. The room went completely silent. Whitmore's face reddened. "Excuse me, I asked if that's what you did when you were called to serve in World War II. Did you answer that call? Or did you get a deferment because your father was a congressman and knew how to work the system?" The reporters erupted. Cameras flashed. Whitmore slammed his gavel. But the damage was done. Ali had done his homework. He knew that Whitmore had avoided service through political connections, something the senator had successfully kept quiet for decades. "That information is classified," Whitmore shouted, his composure cracking. "No, sir," Ali said calmly. "That information is public record. I spent 2 weeks in the Library of Congress reading through military service records. Yours was very interesting. 5 different deferments between 1942 and 1945. Education deferment, essential worker deferment, medical deferment that mysteriously disappeared after the war ended. Your father was very creative in keeping you safe, while other men died on foreign beaches." Senator Robert Morrison from New York, sitting 3 seats down from Whitmore, couldn't suppress a slight smile. He'd never liked Whitmore's grandstanding and was enjoying watching the bully get challenged. Samuel Washington in the audience felt tears forming. He'd never seen a black man speak to power like this. But Whitmore wasn't finished. He'd built a career on attacking people, and he wasn't about to back down now. "My service record is irrelevant. What's relevant is that you refuse to serve your country, and you claim it's because of your religion. But let me ask you this. Do you even know what the Quran says about war? It was another trap. Whitmore had a scholar from the State Department sitting in the front row, ready to contradict whatever Ali said. But Ali leaned forward, his voice carrying absolute authority. The Quran says, in Surah 2, verse 190, "Fight in the way of Allah, those who fight you but do not transgress. Indeed, Allah does not like transgressors." That means Muslims can fight in self-defense, but we cannot be aggressors. We cannot start wars. We cannot kill innocent people who've done us no harm. He paused, making eye contact with the television cameras. The Vietnamese people never attacked America. They never attacked me. They never called me the word your constituents call me, Senator. So tell me, how is going to Vietnam to kill people who've done nothing to me anything other than transgression? The State Department scholar in the front row closed his notebook. There was nothing to contradict. Ailey's interpretation was theologically sound. Whitmore pressed on, desperation creeping into his voice. You talk about faith, but isn't it convenient that your faith suddenly told you not to fight right when you'd become famous and wealthy? Where was this conviction when you were a nobody from Kentucky? I'll tell you where it was, Senator, Ali replied, his voice building in intensity. It was there when I won Olympic gold in 1960 and came home to Louisville and couldn't eat at the same restaurants as white folks. It was there when I was refused service at the very diners I'd represented internationally. He stood up now, his full height and presence filling the room. My conviction was there when I watched Emmett Till get murdered for whistling at a white woman. It was there when I watched 4 little girls die in a church bombing in Birmingham. It was there every single day of my life, when I had to remember which water fountains I could drink from, and which doors I could enter, and which parts of town I could walk through without being beaten or killed. Ollie's voice dropped lower, more intense. So don't you dare tell me my faith is convenient, Senator. My faith is the only thing that's kept me sane in a country that's tried to destroy my humanity since the day I was born. The hearing room erupted. Some people applauded. Others shouted. Whitmore's gavel slammed repeatedly. Senator Morrison was openly smiling now. Patricia Chen was crying, furiously taking notes. Samuel Washington stood up, unable to remain seated in the presence of such courage. When order was finally restored, Whitmore tried a different approach. Let's talk about your education, Mr. Ali. You barely graduated high school, isn't that correct? Ranked 376th out of 391 students. That's correct, Ali said, sitting back down calmly. So how do you expect this committee to take seriously your interpretation of constitutional law when you couldn't even pass basic high school courses? Ali smiled. It was the patient smile of someone who'd been underestimated so many times, it had become almost amusing. Senator, you're absolutely right that I struggled in high school. You know why? Because the schools in the black part of Louisville got the oldest textbooks, the worst teachers, the least funding. Because the system was designed to make sure people like me stayed ignorant and compliant. But here's what you don't understand. Failing in a broken system doesn't mean you're stupid. It means the system failed you. He pulled a stack of papers from his briefcase. I've got letters here from 3 constitutional law professors. One from Harvard, one from Yale, one from Howard University. They've all reviewed my legal arguments regarding the draft. Would you like to know what they said? Whitmore said nothing. His face ashen. They said, my understanding of the First Amendment's free exercise clause is sophisticated and legally sound. They said, my argument about the unconstitutional application of the Selective Service Act shows deep comprehension of administrative law. They said, my brief on religious exemption is better research than most lawyers could produce. Ali spread the letters across the witness table. So yes, Senator, I ranked 376th in a segregated high school that didn't want me to succeed. But I've spent 3 years studying law, like my life depends on it, because it does. And I understand the Constitution better than you do. Despite your fancy degrees from universities, I couldn't have attended because of the color of my skin. Senator Morrison cleared his throat. Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the witness. Whitmore looked like he wanted to refuse, but protocol demanded he allow it. The senator from New York is recognized. Morrison leaned forward. Mr. Ali, you've clearly studied constitutional law extensively. In your opinion, does the government have the right to compel citizens to fight in an undeclared war? Ali's eyes lit up. No, sir, they don't. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war. They haven't declared war on Vietnam. So legally, this isn't a war. It's a police action, which means the draft, as applied to Vietnam, is compelling citizens to fight in an undeclared war, which violates the constitutional framework. The room erupted again. Morrison nodded, impressed. Whitmore looked defeated. Furthermore, Ali continued, the Selective Service Act has been applied inconsistently. White college students get deferments, while black men from poor neighborhoods get drafted. Rich men's sons stay home, while poor men's sons die. That's not just immoral, it's unconstitutional. Equal protection under the law means equal burden of service. But Whitmore had one more weapon. Mr. Ali, when you refuse to serve, when you claim your religion is more important than your country, you give young men permission to be cowards. How many American boys have died in Vietnam? Because you made it acceptable to refuse service. Ali was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but carried throughout the room. Senator, my refusal cost me my championship, 3.5 years of my career, millions of dollars. It cost me my passport, my freedom, my peace of mind. I get death threats every single day. That's what my refusal has cost me personally. He paused. But you asked what it's cost the country. Maybe some young men refused to serve because of my example. But you know what? Maybe those young men are alive today because they didn't go to Vietnam. Maybe those young men still have their legs, their arms, their minds. So if my refusal saved even one life, Senator, then I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Complete silence filled the room. Senator Morrison stood. Mr. Chairman, I move that we conclude this hearing. Whitmore gavelled the hearing closed without another word, knowing he'd lost. As Ali gathered his papers, Morrison approached. Mr. Ali, that was the most powerful defense of constitutional principles I've heard in my 20 years in the Senate. I'm going to file a brief supporting your appeal. The next day, newspapers covered the hearing extensively. On June 28, 1971, the Supreme Court overturned Ali's conviction, 8-0, citing some of the very constitutional arguments he'd made. Muhammad Ali had won, not with his fists, but with his mind, not by compromising, but by standing firm on principles he understood better than the senators who tried to destroy him. And on that June morning, Muhammad Ali proved he was the greatest not just in the ring, but standing alone against power and winning with nothing but preparation, courage, and an unshakable belief in the principles that made America worth fighting for.